Right now, less than a mile beneath your feet, something is walking across the ocean floor that looks like it escaped from a horror movie's cutting room floor. It has no face, no brain, and it's been doing just fine for 500 million years. The deep ocean doesn't just hide weird creatures, it manufactures them. And the reason why might be the most unsettling part. Most people think evolution moves slowly. Gradual changes over millions of years. Right. Wrong. At least not down there. The deep ocean is less like a museum and more like a mad scientist's laboratory, cranking out biological experiments that make surface life look boring by comparison. We're talking about fish with transparent heads, crabs covered in hair, and worms that live inside literal volcanoes. So what is it about the deep ocean that turns normal evolution into a fever dream? Keep watching, and you'll find out. Let's start with the basics. When we say deep ocean, we're not talking about where you go scuba diving. We're talking about anything below 200 meters, or about 650 feet. That's where sunlight gives up, just quits. At that depth, you've entered what scientists call the twilight zone. No, not the TV show. Though honestly, it's just as weird. Below that, around 1,000 meters down, you hit the midnight zone. Pitch black, freezing cold, and the pressure, about 100 times what you experience at sea level. Simultaneously, your ribcage would collapse before you could even think about screaming. And yet life doesn't just survive down there. It thrives. More than that, it gets creative. Really creative. The kind of creative that makes you wonder if evolution down there is playing by different rules entirely. Here's the thing. The deep ocean makes up 95% of Earth's livable space. Let that sink in. We're surface dwellers, clinging to a thin film of habitable zone, while the vast majority of our planet is this alien realm we've barely scratched. We've mapped more of Mars than we have of the deep ocean floor. And what we have found? It shouldn't exist. At least, not according to what we thought we knew about biology. Take the barley fish. This thing has a transparent skull. You can literally see its brain. Its eyes point upward, locked in that position, scanning the darkness above for prey. But here's where it gets weirder. Those aren't actually its eyes. Well, they are. But those two dots you think are eyes on its face? Those are its nostrils. The actual eyes are inside the transparent dome, looking like two green orbs floating in liquid. It looks like someone started building a fish, got distracted, and just said, good enough. Why does it look like that? You don't get second chances. Food is scarce, ridiculously scarce. So scarce that when scientists first started studying deep-sea life, they couldn't figure out how anything survived at all. Surface oceans are full of phytoplankton, the microscopic plants that form the base of basically every food chain. But phytoplankton needs sunlight. And the deep ocean has none. So what do deep-sea creatures eat? Each other, mostly. And whatever scraps fall from above. Dead whales. Dead fish. Dead anything. It's called a whale fall. And for deep-sea life, it's like winning the lottery. A single whale carcass can sustain an entire ecosystem for decades. Decades. That's how desperate things are down there. This scarcity changes everything. It means you can't afford to be picky. You can't afford to miss a meal. Ever. Which is why so many deep-sea fish have mouths it can unhinge its jaw and swallow prey larger than itself, then spend weeks digesting it, because who knows when the next meal is coming. The black swallower does the same thing. It's a small fish, maybe 10 inches long. The prey is so large that you can see its outline through the swallower's skin. It looks like it ate a submarine. And sometimes the prey is so big that it decomposes and fills the swallower with gas before digestion is complete, causing it to float to the surface. That's how we discovered these things. They literally ate themselves to death and floated up as evidence. But the pressure. Let's talk about the pressure. The pressure is crushing. Absolutely crushing. Your lungs, sinuses, eardrums, gone. So how do deep-sea creatures deal with this? Simple. They don't have air spaces. Most deep-sea fish don't have swim bladders, the air-filled organs that help surface fish control their buoyancy. Instead, they're just kind of floppy, like water balloons with fins. Some are gelatinous, which is a polite way of saying they're basically living jelly. No bones, no rigid structures, just soft tissue that can handle the pressure because it doesn't resist it. The blobfish is the poster child for this. You've probably seen photos of it. It looks like a sad, melting pile of flesh with a face. But that's only at the surface. Down at 900 meters where it lives, the pressure keeps everything tight. It actually looks relatively normal. But bring it up to the surface where the pressure drops, and it just sort of collapses into the depressed meme you know and love. Then there's the light situation, or lack thereof. Bioluminescence is the rule, not the exception. Around 90% of deep-sea creatures produce their own light. They've turned their bodies into glow sticks. Some use it to hunt, some use it to communicate, and some use it for the most devious reason of all: deception. The anglerfish is the master of this. The female anglerfish has a modified spine that extends from her head like a fishing rod, complete with a glowing lure on the end. She dangles it in front of her face, wiggling it around, and when some poor creature comes to investigate, she lunges forward with jaws full of needle-sharp teeth. It's a biological trap, and it works. Here's the really disturbing part about anglerfish. The males. Male anglerfish are tiny, like hundreds of times smaller than the females. And when a male finds a female in the vast darkness of the deep ocean, which is basically a miracle, he bites into her flesh and never lets go. Ever. His body fuses with hers. His organs atrophy. His circulatory system merges with hers. He becomes a parasitic appendage, existing only to provide sperm when needed. He's not even really a separate organism anymore, just a permanent reproductive organ attached to her body. Multiple males can do this to a single female. She can end up with half a dozen shriveled male bodies dangling from her like grotesque ornaments. It's horrifying. It's brilliant. And it only works because the deep ocean is so vast and so empty that traditional mating just isn't viable. You can't exactly go searching for a partner when you might be the only two of your species in 1,000 cubic miles of darkness. This brings us to one of the deepest mysteries of the deep ocean. How do creatures find each other at all? The ocean is incomprehensibly large. The deep zones are mostly empty. And yet somehow life finds a way. Some species follow chemical trails. Others use bioluminescent patterns like biological identification cards. And some, we just don't know. We found species where only one or two individuals have ever been spotted. We have no idea how they reproduce. We don't know what they eat. We barely know they exist. The megamouth shark was only discovered in 1976. 1976. That's only 50 years ago. We'd been to the moon before we knew this thing existed. It's a 15-foot shark with a mouth like a cave. And we only know about it because a few have accidentally gotten caught in nets or washed ashore. How many are out there? Where do they live? Nobody knows. And speaking of things that shouldn't exist, let's talk about hydrothermal vents. These are cracks in the ocean floor, where superheated water, sometimes exceeding 400 degrees Celsius, erupts into the freezing ocean. That's hot enough to melt lead. And yet clustered around these vents, life explodes. Giant tube worms, some reaching over 8 feet long, wave in the toxic water. They have no mouth, no stomach, no digestive system at all. So how do they eat? They don't. At least, not in any conventional sense. They house colonies of bacteria. Billions of them. These bacteria convert the toxic chemicals from the vent into energy through a process called chemosynthesis. It's like photosynthesis, but instead of sunlight and carbon dioxide, they use hydrogen sulfide and oxygen. Is the stuff that makes rotten eggs smell terrible. It's deadly to most life. For these bacteria, it's breakfast. The tube worms just sit there, providing real estate for the bacteria and absorbing the nutrients they produce. It's a partnership that exists nowhere else on Earth. Well, almost nowhere. In the 1970s, when scientists first discovered these vent ecosystems, they realized something profound. Life doesn't need the sun. For billions of years, we assumed all life on Earth ultimately depended on sunlight. Plants use it to grow. Herbivores eat the plants. Carnivores eat the herbivores. The sun powers everything. Except it doesn't. These vent communities prove that life can bootstrap itself from pure chemistry. And that changed everything. If life can exist in superheated toxic water and complete darkness at crushing pressures on Earth, where else could it exist? Jupiter's moon Europa has an ocean beneath its ice. Saturn's moon Enceladus has hydrothermal vents. We know this because the Cassini spacecraft detected plumes of water erupting from its surface. Could there be tube worms on Enceladus? Could there be something even stranger? But let's get back to the weird stuff. Because we're just getting started. The vampire squid isn't actually a squid. It's not an octopus either. It's something else entirely. A living fossil that's remained basically unchanged for hundreds of millions of years. It has the largest eyes relative to body size of any animal on Earth. Huge, bulging eyes that take up a quarter of its body. And when threatened, it doesn't shoot ink like other cephalopods. It turns itself inside out. Literally, it pulls its webbed arms up over its body like a cloak, revealing a spiky alien interior. It looks like something Lovecraft would dream up after too much cheese before bed. Then there's the giant isopod. You know pill bugs? Those little roly-poly things you find under rocks? Imagine one the size of a football. That's a giant isopod. They're scavengers crawling along the ocean floor looking for anything dead to munch on. And they can survive for years without eating. Years. One went 5 years without food before it finally died. Not from starvation, but possibly from boredom. We're not sure. The point is, the deep ocean doesn't just create weird-looking animals. It creates animals with metabolisms that barely qualify as alive by our standards. The Greenland shark takes this to an extreme. These sharks live in the deep, cold waters of the Arctic and North Atlantic. They grow incredibly slowly. So slowly that they don't reach sexual maturity until they're around 150 years old. Their estimated lifespan? 400 years. Maybe longer. We found individuals that could have been alive before Shakespeare wrote Hamlet. They're the longest living vertebrates on Earth. And they're nearly blind. Their eyes are usually covered in parasites. Little crustaceans that dangle from their corneas like biological cataracts. The sharks don't seem to care. They're too slow to hunt by sight anyway. They're ambush predators. Sort of. If you can call something that moves at 1 mile per hour an ambush predator, let's talk about the deepest of the deep. The Hattel Zone, named after Hades. Because of course it is. This is anything below 6,000 meters. Typically found in ocean trenches. The Mariana Trench, the deepest point on Earth, reaches down to almost 11,000 meters. That's deeper than Mount Everest is tall. The pressure there is over 1,000 times atmospheric pressure. We've found fish there. The Mariana snailfish, discovered in 2014, holds the record for the deepest living fish ever filmed, at around 8,000 meters. It looks like it's melting, translucent, gelatinous, with fins that seem too small for its body. It doesn't look like it should be able to swim, but it does. Gracefully, even. Scientists think this might be close to the absolute depth limit for fish. Any deeper, and the pressure would prevent the proteins in their cells from functioning. Even with all the weird adaptations, there are physical limits. Or so we think. Every time we go deeper, we find something we didn't expect. In 2020, researchers sent a camera to the bottom of the Mariana Trench. What did they find? Shrimp. Thriving. Not just surviving, but thriving. Clusters of them. Scavenging on bait the researchers had dropped. How? How does anything work down there? The pressure should break molecular bonds. The cold should freeze metabolic processes. The lack of food should starve everything. And yet, this is the real question. Not just what lives in the deep ocean, but why it creates such bizarre forms. And the answer comes down to a principle called deep-sea gigantism. Now, gigantism is when organisms grow larger than their shallow water relatives. Giant squid, giant isopods, giant tube worms, giant spider crabs. But why? One theory is Kleiber's law. It states that larger animals have slower metabolisms relative to their size. In an environment where food is scarce, being big and slow is an advantage. You need fewer calories to maintain your body, you can store more energy, and you can survive longer between meals. It's the opposite of surface predators, where being fast and efficient is key. In the deep, slow and steady literally wins the race. Another factor is temperature. Cold water holds more oxygen than warm water. But cold also slows down growth. Deep-sea creatures take forever to reach maturity. This extended growth period, combined with the lack of predators at extreme depths, means they can just keep growing. There's nothing stopping them. Imagine if humans took 50 years to reach adulthood, but could live to 400. We'd probably be a lot bigger too. Then there's the lack of UV radiation. On the surface, UV light damages DNA. Sure, but it also limits how large cells can safely grow. In the pitch-black deep, that's not a concern. Cells can grow larger because they're not being constantly bombarded by radiation. This might explain why so many deep-sea creatures look gelatinous and bloated. Their cells are just bigger. But perhaps the most important factor is competition, or rather, the lack of it. On the surface, every niche is filled. Every food source is claimed. If you want to survive, you need to specialize. Fast fish, camouflaged fish, poisonous fish. Everyone's competing for the same resources. In the deep, the playing field is mostly empty. There's space to experiment. Evolution can try things that would never work on the surface. Transparent heads, detachable males, living without a digestive system. If it works even a little bit, it's good enough. There's no competing design to outperform. This is why the deep ocean is sometimes called an evolutionary museum. Species that went extinct everywhere else, millions of years ago, are still hanging on down there. The coelacanth, a fish thought to have gone extinct 66 million years ago, was found alive and well in 1938, living in deep water off the coast of South Africa. It had changed so little that it was basically identical to fossils hundreds of millions of years old. Why change when your environment stays the same? And that's the real answer. The deep ocean creates things that shouldn't exist because it's the most stable environment on Earth. The temperature barely changes. The pressure is constant. While the surface world went through ice ages, asteroid impacts, mass extinctions and climate swings, the deep ocean just kept being the deep ocean. Evolution down there isn't about adaptation. It's about optimization. Getting really good at surviving in a place where the rules never change. But here's the terrifying part. We're changing it. Right now, we've found plastic in the Mariana Trench. Microplastics in the stomachs of creatures living 10,000 meters down. We're mining the ocean floor for minerals, disrupting ecosystems we don't even understand yet. And climate change is altering ocean chemistry. Even at depth, the deep ocean has been stable for hundreds of millions of years. And we're messing with it. What happens when the most stable environment on Earth becomes unstable? We don't know, but we're about to find out. These creatures have no backup plan. They've spent millions of years perfecting survival in one specific environment. They can't just move. They can't adapt quickly. Evolution down there is slow because it doesn't need to be fast. Until now. The deep ocean isn't just a museum of weird life. It's a library of biological solutions we haven't even begun to read. Every creature down there represents millions of years of trial and error. The proteins that keep deep-sea fish from being crushed could revolutionize medicine. The bioluminescent chemicals could transform technology. The bacteria that eat toxins could clean up pollution. We're throwing away answers to questions we haven't even asked yet. And the worst part, we've explored less than 5% of it. That means 95% is completely unknown. There are mountain ranges down there taller than the Himalayas that we've never seen. Valleys deeper than the Grand Canyon that we can't even imagine. Every time we send down a submarine, we find new species. Not one or two, dozens, sometimes hundreds. The deep ocean is the largest habitat on Earth, and it's full of things that shouldn't exist. But they do. And that's either the most exciting or the most terrifying thing you'll think about today. So the next time you're at the beach, looking out at the calm water, remember what's beneath. Not just fish and whales, but a world more alien than anything we'll find on Mars. A place where evolution threw out the rulebook and started over. Where creatures glow in the dark, turn themselves inside out, and live for centuries in crushing darkness. Where the impossible is just another Tuesday. The deep ocean doesn't create things that shouldn't exist. It creates things that can only exist there. And maybe that's the point. Maybe Earth isn't one planet. Maybe it's two. The surface world we know. And the deep world we're only beginning to discover. And if that's true, we're only halfway through exploring our own home.